All right, we're back with the Quad City Times Political Focus Group. I've got 9 members on my panel. There's actually 10. Caitlin Higgins is not here tonight, so we miss her responses, but I've got a good 9 here. And we already talked about division in America, and so now I want to move on to solutions to that division. What ideas does anyone here have on repairing the tear in America? So who's got some ideas? Tim.
Thank you, Tom. Matt and I were talking during the break about our experiences during the Vietnam era. You know, after the war was over, Nixon was elected, there was still a lot of divide in the country, and because he barely beat Humphrey. And Watergate happened. In a lot of ways, the Watergate Committee, which was respected by both sides, really put that to an end. And when Nixon resigned, I put a burden on Jerry Ford to make a decision about what would happen next. He did the right thing for the country, the wrong thing perhaps politically, and pardoned Nixon, and it was over. That era was over. And it doesn't feel like we're at a stage where there's something that would happen that we could go put a pin in it and go, okay, we're done. That divide's gonna melt away and we can move forward. Just doesn't feel like it.
So you don't see that same kind of thing happening to bring
deep down inside, I hope that Trump loses, that the MAGA people turn him and go, guy lost, he can't run again, he's 78 years old, and they start to turn away and try to work with people, but it doesn't feel like that's on the horizon. Even if he loses, it doesn't feel like it's on the horizon. He'll just sell stuff.
All right, David.
One idea I've been talking to a few friends about that is not on the ticket right now, but I would love it to be discussed. It was proposed by the Prime Minister in England soon after before he got kicked out, was mandatory national service. So the idea that we talked about our youth being so fragmented and divided and locked up in their own homes on social media, that there would be a mandatory time in their lives where they would have to mix with other folks with differing views, even if it's 1 year or 2 years after high school, so that we could actually come up with a common understanding of the American experience. And it can be very powerful. I sense that if everyone is just as able to use their vouchers, go to their private schools and live in their bubbles, we'll end up in a situation where less and less connection happens.
Jonathan.
I was going to say, in relation to that, I remember being in college in my early 20s, and one of the things that ended up happening was we would interact with, I was on the very conservative end of things, and I knew people who were on the very liberal end of things, and we might stop by one another's table, and sometimes there were that arguments got heated. I mean, there was never any physical confrontation, but we would have heated exchanges. But we would sit there, we would talk to one another, and when we walked away, we may not have agreed, but each side felt heard. And there was one day that I was talking to a very far left member of the Green Party, and he tried to convince me that NAFTA was a bad idea from a leftist perspective, and he was shocked when I looked at him, and I told him, I said, we have gone so far around the circle that we have met on the back side, because for conservative reasons, I completely agree with you that NAFTA is a terrible program. And we both ended up laughing about the fact that for very different reasons, we had found political unity. I think.
So let me ask a group question. Raise your hands if you think that the political divide will get better. Got a couple? Got 3, 4? Do you think that it will improve? Matt, what do you think might happen? Do you have any?
Well, I want to irritate some people, but I think the only way the country heals is if Donald Trump loses in a massive landslide. Now, people may say opposite if Harris loses in a massive landslide, but I just think it's time for him to get out of the political picture.
So you think part of the problem is a politician, Donald Trump?
I think the problem is that for too long, both extremists on both sides of the parties have gotten all the airtime on CNN or Fox. So that's the way people view the Republican Party, the Marjorie Greens, the AOC is how the Democratic Party is viewed. And then you throw Trump into the mix, and I mean, there's nobody wishy-washy about Trump. You either love him or hate him. I mean,
Yeah.
did anybody say, gosh, Donald Trump, I just don't know about him. I mean, come on, I mean, it is, it's like that. I have friends that would...
Jessica has a different opinion, I think.
Yeah.
I know you want MAGA to go away, but it's not going to go away because it came out of the Tea Party. And it came out of a movement as the Democrats moved closer to the left, the Republicans had to move away from the middle and move closer to the right because there's certain things that we just can't do anymore. We can't keep funding foreign wars and helping people all over the world while our own people are sitting on top of the mountain waiting for help. And they're getting the help now, but it's one of those things that, I mean, how much more do the American taxpayers have to do to support this globalist agenda? And when are we going to ask our allies and our other, countries that we're in alliances with to help out? Nobody's helping North Carolina. Germany's not sending money. We have to help ourselves first. We have to put on our own oxygen mask before we can help others. And I used to be a globalist thinker. I used to be somebody that thought we should go out and help everybody else. And as I've gotten older, I realized, we got to do more for the people that are suffering here, the people that need better opportunity, better jobs, better health care, better education. And how are we going to do that? And I think we all agree we need to do it. We just differ on how to get there.
And do you feel like Donald Trump represents that ideology for?
I think he represents the ideology of we need to put America first. We need to put Americans in the front of the line.
And if Donald Trump is not there, somebody else will be there, or the group will be intact regardless.
I think there are younger politicians coming up, and there are more people like me who were in the middle, who were kind of like socially liberal, economically conservative, who really didn't like Donald Trump. In 2016, I thought it was a huge joke. I was just like, I can't believe this guy's running. And then he got elected, and then I watched what he did, and now I'm like, okay, let's have another 4 years of this.
Eugene.
Our country's motto used to be E pluribus unum, from many one. But now, so people would come from all over the world, but they wanted to be Americans. My wife's family was Italian, and they still do the fancy cookies, the squid and all of the things from their home country, but my wife said that they weren't, the grandparents, when they were little, they weren't allowed to speak Italian at home because they wanted them to be Americans. The media, or whatever, the media is kind of a cabal, but they've made being an American, if you're an American, you're a dirty dog. You slaughtered the Indians, you stole America, you stole the land, you're a colonizer. And so now people come from other countries, and it appears to me that they would rather create their own country here rather than say, okay, I just want to celebrate my heritage, but I want to be an American.
Okay. Does anybody disagree with that?
In what way?
In any way? Do you think, Eugene,
It's always been because people come here still want to be Americans.
they still want to be Americans? They come here for what?
For opportunity, to not be persecuted by their government, to have a chance at economic freedom, to raise their kids in a good place,
Okay.
to get away from crime.
Matthew?
I agree with that. I think we're all a product of a melting pot, and I don't think we should be shutting out new immigrant communities now. Just like there's always been a tension of how many people do you let in, what kinds of people do we let in, but I still feel like immigrants provide a really good lifeblood. They provide variety, they provide new perspectives, and they do add to America. I think there's so many people who desperately would like to be American, and maybe they can make it here and maybe they can't, but I really don't feel like we're getting hijacked in any sort of way by new immigrant communities. And there are a lot of people that would really love to be here and love to have the lives that we all share.
All right, so back to the original question then. No, I think this was a good discussion. What ideas does anyone here have to sort of repair the damage? What's a step forward? Jonathan?
I think, and I agree that I think this is somewhat the effect of, if I can use this, bubbleizing, where everybody gets segregated off into their own space. I believe that we have to be more intentional about being out and about. This group would be a good example. I don't think any of us, even though we have obviously very strong differences of opinion, we're all sitting here, we're communicating with one another, we're laughing together. There's obviously a sense of camaraderie and who we are as people. More people need to be out and turn off the television, shut off the computer, get out of the house, and go to Walmart. You know, for all the jokes about what Walmart is, go to Walmart. Go to the local mall. But get out, get among people. And I don't think disagreement, even vigorous disagreement, should be penalized. I think two people should be able to have very vigorous disagreement and be fine. I still laugh. In 2004, I had my car rear window plastered with pro-Republican candidates. I walked out of the Moline Public Library one day and I looked down and there's a little button turned over face down. I look over, I bend it over, look at it. Someone had put next to my driver's side door a John Kerry, John Edwards button. I still have that button today. I don't know who left it there. I laughed. I laughed the whole way home. Of all of the political paraphernalia I've ever had, I am happiest with that button.
So you're saying face-to-face, when we have groups like this who get together, who feel differently about things, we find some common ground, or at least see each other as humans?
Yeah. And just to see one another, to be heard by one another. We're not all gonna, nobody, I came from a substantially large family. The number of times I can say that we agreed with one another completely in a week, or went a week without vigorous disagreement, especially between three teenage boys, laughable. Anybody that's a parent knows that's laughable. We're human. We should just be able to have vigorous disagreement and enjoy it.
I feel like maybe this is just me, but I feel like there's a lack of trust, that we think people who think differently have bad motives. They're bad people, maybe. Does anybody feel like that's the case, that we don't trust each other in a way that we used to? Eugene?
Right over there in my notebook, I have a copy of the U.S. Constitution. I carry it in my glove compartment. I've bought them by the hundreds and hand out. And I realize I've got that in my pocket, and that gives me, that annotates some of my rights and the structure of the government I've agreed to live under. And everybody in here and everybody in the whole town has one of those constitutions in their pocket too. And if you say, okay, we all agree on the basic principles of the Constitution, the freedom of speech, the freedom of religion, the gun thing, the search and seizure, and the ability to not incriminate yourself, if we could all agree on that, then I don't care about stupid tax policies and stuff like that. I'll live with all of that stuff. But when people start saying about, we're going to change the Supreme Court, I lived under a liberal Supreme Court for many years, and I just sucked it up and waited until it went my way. And now it's on my way a little bit, and I see somebody saying, well, we just want to yank that away. That's unfair.
So the Constitution is what unifies us?
I swore the oath to defend that, and that's really the main thing.
All right. Well, I think that ends this section of the divisiveness, that you guys were not as divided as our country, it seems. So thanks for that round.